Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. In this video, we have Cassie Randolph speaking with the Almost Famous podcast live from Audrey's Cafe in Rhode Island as she discusses feeling completely caught off guard with her previous relationship with Colton Underwood, who of course came out of the closet, but not after stalking and harassing her, which we covered extensively in the last couple of years. Follow me on Instagram at tneals, patreon.com/Dave Neal for private behind-the-scenes content, and it doesn't get more behind the scenes than what I've got planned for you guys today. I'll be releasing at 10:30 in this morning this video right here of the wedding ceremony of my now wife, Tasha, and myself. So that is for the Patreon only, patreon.com/Dave Neal. Get that for as little as $5 a month. You can just do 1 month at a time if that's all you want. If you just want to watch that and never be a part of the Patreon again, that's okay too. All right, so let's get into it. I've made countless videos, including reading the text messages from the actual restraining order that Cassie had several years ago, where Colton had created a fake identity and pretended to stalk himself along with Cassie. He was also spotted late at night in Cassie's parents' alleyway. He was off his rocker, to put it nicely, and Cassie has to deal with that. But at the same time, he was also closeted and trying to hold on to whatever identity he could hold on to. Doesn't make what he did right. No, it was very wrong, to the point where the law got involved. She retained lawyer Brian Friedman, power attorney, and it got ugly, and she has not talked about it since, signed an NDA when she dropped the restraining order, which is, really goes to show how the system works against victims, because not only was she a victim, but she ends up signing an NDA just not to push the case. I mean, and of course she discovered a tracking device in his car. So we know all these things. We're going to get into what she said here. I've got 3 clips for you guys. She discusses her current boyfriend, longtime boyfriend now of a couple years, Brighton, who's a fantastic musician. I got the chance to see him live a couple months ago. Fantastic musician. And he wrote a song about Colton being a creep. We'll get into that in a minute. Here's what she had to say. Cassie Randolph, everybody.
Being up here still. And I don't really leave my Huntington bubble. I kind of just, walk everywhere I go. But I think with Bachelor, it'll always be a part, we all know. It'll always kind of be a part of who we are. And, I still love it. I would still be associated or, go on the show and say hi to everyone and do little things here and there for sure. I just think things that have happened over the last few years made me have to kind of take a step back from things. So
all right, so she says things that happened over the last few years made her take a step back. She will not mention his name in person. She is just done with him. And sadly, I have to say this. While we'd love to hear her story and maybe someday she'll tell it, although if she really is under an NDA, she probably doesn't want to deal with a lawsuit. Doing this podcast live in front of an audience, it's hard to get a heavy conversation out because it's in front of strangers. So I don't blame Ben and Ashley for asking these difficult questions I'm about to share with you, but I just know they're not going to get a great answer because it's not in a sort of warm and trusting environment. But hey, kudos to them for getting the interview.
Podcast has put people in a weird position, but I'm going to try to dance that line very carefully tonight. So if we can go back to then when you were told, hey, this is the season you're going to go on, this is who the Bachelor is going to be. Do you remember being excited? Nervous? What were your emotions around it? And if you could even walk us into the first few weeks of the season, did you feel like, hey, this could be something spectacular for me?
Oh. His name was Colton. That was the name of the Bachelor. I'll say his name so she doesn't have to.
No, I was really excited. I remember a week before I left, my brother and dad were at this football game randomly, and they saw him from far away. They're like, oh my gosh, Cassie. I was super excited. And the first few weeks, you guys know, it's just a whirlwind. You don't even know where you are half the time or what time of day it is. But I was just...
I love that how, podcasting's not hard enough. Let's do it at a coffee shop where she's like, well, the darkest point in my life, and in the background I have a Jen for 2 macchiatos, extra foam.
Very hopeful, I think, the entire time.
I remember your season. I remember watching it vividly, and knowing that I guess most people in the audience probably that can remember that time were thinking Cassie's going to be there towards the end. I remember even we were doing a podcast and like she's either going to be the next Bachelor or she's going to be there at the end of it. Obviously, that relationship ended up continuing past the show, and we're going to ask the question. Then the headlines.
I like he perfs it. Hey, we're going to ask the question. If we're going to ask the question, she's like, okay, ask a stupid question.
Started to come out.
I'm not going to answer.
And you found out that Colton came out as gay through these headlines, correct? Am I remembering that right? How does that make you feel at the time?
Okay, so yeah, for the timeline, which we don't need to put together right now, he came out just months after she dropped the RA, the temporary restraint. I don't like to say it because it gets demonetized, but it was like none of this was mentioned to her through the whole like stalking ordeal. None of this was mentioned. So she had to find out that he was going to be on a reality show. She had to find out that he was doing this big old, reveal, all these different things, all the ways he pretty much commodified his coming out process, which he did through the Netflix docuseries. She had to find this all out like you and I. And there is something to say about, look, even though there's a agreement to not talk to each other, he could have talked to his accountant. He could have talked to literally the mailman, anybody he could have talked to get the word over. Their agents. This happens all the time in Hollywood where it's like your agent talks to my agent to be like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be filing for divorce or I'm going to be doing this. These things happen that didn't happen. So here's her response.
I feel like it's a very loaded question because I can't necessarily talk a lot about it. Yeah.
Because of the NDA.
I'm very happy that he, is at peace with himself and not carrying that burden anymore, of course.
What did she get out of the NDA? She literally can't talk about the guy who stalked her. And she dropped all charges, so he can't get charged, which he would have been. Of course, it would have been a circus. There was a tracking device placed on his car, which I'll play the rest of this interview in a second. But you see here, we covered this story several years ago. Cassie's boyfriend wrote the song Creep, which is a fantastic song. You think this song is about you're a creep. You put a tracking device on the underside, whatever the lyrics are. You get either a permanent restraining order or you drop the charges or the judge doesn't grant it. What happened was on October 6th, the temporary restraining order was extended, which means they weren't able to come to a deal yet. So on October 6th, it was extended, and then Colton Underwood made an announcement November 3rd that Cassie Randolph dropped the restraining order against him. So the fact that he controlled the story the whole time is just so unnerving to people that want to see either justice or victims, because he goes, oh, she dropped the restraining order. Yeah, what did you pay her to? Like, no one knows actually what happened here. But of course, the song Creep by Brighton, you can see here in the album art, you've got what appears to be a donkey and dressed in the same suit that Colton had when he was the lead. So anyway, we have all that old content. If you haven't watched it, that's old Power Recapper Dave right there. Here's the rest of what Cassie says, which of course we don't get much. You got to read between the lines here.
It was a very just overall hard time for me. So I feel like there was just one thing after another, and I was just extremely overwhelmed just with everything going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really hard.
You were with your boyfriend at that time.
Yeah.
By the way, next time there's a podcast at a cafe, nobody order an espresso in the background.
Over a year-ish, right?
Yeah.
How did he support you through that? Did you try to not bring it up just because it was a past relationship?
Me and Brighton have been friends for like 7 years now, which is the way to start a relationship. It's so nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were friends for a long time before. We started dating like that last summer, kind of unofficially, but we still count it as like we were dating then. And no, he was very, very supportive just through everything. He's never been weird. If anything, I feel like I think he's just very defensive, or protective, or kind of makes me talk it out with him more than I would like to, not in a bad way, in a good way. But it's been really helpful to have. I feel very lucky to have a good support system, for sure.
That's awesome.
I mean, I think that's something to take note of too. You know, obviously when you're on this show, public things happen. You know, public breakups, public marriages. It's difficult, and I think one of the things that just to say there is kudos to him for being that strong support to you, because sometimes it does feel very lonely and it's confusing, and there's 1,000 messages. I remember talking on the podcast as well, but when Lauren and I broke up, there was like a team Lauren and a team Ben, and nobody knows the real story except us.
That's the most annoying part.
Yeah, and so it's all out there, and you're reading stuff.
I can't with their audio. Sorry, guys.
Stuff, but you're like, wait, I don't want anybody to hate her. I don't want anybody to hate me. You don't know what's going on, and so to have that is very special.
Yeah, I feel lucky.
Okay, she says, I feel lucky. So that's basically all we're going to get from that interview, which is totally fair. Here's Brighton and Cassie. And I got to say, yeah, Brighton's got that sort of rocker, extroverted, fun-loving, life-of-the-party personality. And Cassie, whether it's through the incident that happened to her with Colton or whether it's just her natural personality, is a little more protected, withdrawn. So for Brighton, just from my analysis out here, for him to be able to say, hey, it's okay to talk to me about this. It's okay to discuss this. For him to say, hey, you were wronged. You were the victim. You did nothing wrong. That's a powerful place to be, and lucky for Cassie to have a guy like that, and lucky for Brighton to have Cassie. They're a great match as far as we can see here. So that's the story from Cassie. That's what we have. And don't expect to hear too much else. She's done a good job, and it's always so funny too. Everyone said when they broke up that Cassie was the one who wanted all the fame. Everyone said, oh, she pushed him away or whatever. All these things kind of like, of course, taking the side of Colton over her. And then the more that's come out, it's like I think we've seen everybody's true colors. Colton is sort of he'd commodify everything if he could. I mean, everything is a business deal to him, and to Cassie, she's just moving on with her life. All right, folks, patreon.com/Dave Neal for the 10:30 a.m. Pacific time live premiere of my wedding ceremony. We'll see you guys over there for that. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.